What's up, YouTube fam? Welcome to the late night chat. Just just got back from a date night with Key, and we got to talking. What's up? Hey, go! Don't come over here. What do you need? Huh? You going to sleep? I love you. Thank y'all for coming in. Close the door all the way. Mystic Flower, Shawnee Corny. Who is that? Oh my gosh, I don't know who that is. But the reason why I called this live YouTube has to work. That's what the thumbnail says. It's because it just has to. I think I'm about to divulge some information. Got you. What's up? If you're coming in, just press that like button for me. Super chat is open if you want to donate to our channel. Shout outs to everybody who has been tapping in with us. Man, over the last week, we've gained 550 subscribers, which is crazy. We haven't seen this much growth on our channel since Raleigh's birth. No, Isaiah's birth video. So that video got us a lot of traction. I think we got like 1,200 subscribers from that video alone. But shout outs to everybody who is new, and welcome to our channel. For those who don't know, my name is Sean. I am a husband and I am a father of 8. We have 6 kids that live in our house with us, and my current profession is a teacher. I'm an educator. However, since switching to this district where I live, Mecklenburg County Public Schools, that title has kind of teetered and tottered in different spaces. Make sure y'all hit that thumbs up button, man. It really helps out the channel. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see us continue to do this work, send us a super chat. Any denomination, it all helps to grow the channel. Sorry to hear that. Is there a thumbs down? No. 6 kids is a lot to support on a teacher's salary, especially down here, because if you're a teacher without a master's degree, you are scraping the bottom of the pot. You're not making a whole bunch of money. I remember like in New Jersey, like I was making like $70,000 a year as a teacher. So it's been a trip, I'll say that. So but because doing anything else outside of teaching is going to require so much time from my family, I really don't want to do anything else. So like YouTube just has to work, man, because I feel like it's something that I'm good at. It's something that I can share with my family. It's something that is going to give me the freedom to stay at home and do other things that could earn us income. Because you know, my teacher's salary just covers the basics, just covers our bills. And at any given moment, man, um, at any given moment, if anything were to go wrong, if we would ever have a major expense, thank God I have some credit, but like we would be messed up in the game. We would be messed up in the game. Um, but I gotta give a big and huge shout out to God for really showing up and showing out in the right places. Even though I don't make a lot of money as a teacher, I've tried side hustle after side hustle, and they haven't amounted to much. Uh, he's never let us fail. He's never let us. He's never let us go completely under. We might have experienced some hardships, but we were still able to keep food in our bellies, able to still keep the lights on, clothes on our back. In some cases, in a lot of cases, I would even say, we were able to do even more. You know what I mean, and have like an abundance of things. So of we've had pockets of wealth. I'll say that we've had moments of wealth, but nothing like nothing like really sustained. Um, but that's all to God's doing. There would just be opportunities that would come along, um, just like sometimes like out of nowhere, and put like $10,000 in our pocket. God bless you. Thank you so much. No, I don't teach advanced level. This last year, so when I first came to this district, I was teaching kindergarten. But the paraprofessional that I had in my classroom, um, she she didn't like the way that I taught. She was used to the old traditional way, and that just was not me. Uh, my background in teaching is from. Hey, what's going on, Monique? My background in teaching is from charter schools, and my first full time teaching gig was at a charter school called North Star Academy in Newark, New Jersey, right? And it was there that I learned the importance of getting kids invested in school. God bless. Oh yeah, LA all the way. Even though we dropped the ball, shout outs to the shout outs to my Lakers. So I really learned like the importance of getting kids invested in school, getting invested in, like their state exams, because sometimes school could be a drag. And when kids are invested in school, when they like their teachers, when they like their school, when they like the scores that they're getting, they become more and more invested. They pay more attention, they do better work, they have better performances. So, and I've always been a hype man. I've always been the one to get the crowd going. I've always been the one who brought the energy. Like I was great at hosting events, great at hosting concerts and programs and all those things like that. So, that's my background as like an entertainer. So that's what I was bringing to the school, and that's what I brought to every school that I taught at. I also know I also know that each school that I taught prior to teaching in this district, they were predominantly black schools, right? So like our until this year, until these last 2 years, I might have taught 4 white kids, and probably had, the staff of the school. While we did have more white teachers in our schools than students, um, these were people that were like really dedicated to making sure that black and brown kids got the best education that they could get. And when I was teaching at North Star, man, these kids, when they were taking the achievement tests, these kids, they were getting 90, 99, 95% proficient, 90% advanced proficient, crazy numbers like that, far exceeding the state norms and stuff like that. And these kids were like geniuses, right? Because they were so, like, the school culture was just so investing, and like, and the buy-in was just so crazy that, the parents, teachers, and students, everybody was on the same page. Um, and So that's the energy that I brought, getting kids excited about class. When we have answers, you be loud and proud. There's chants and cheers and bringing a lot of fun to the classroom. And it worked, and it worked. And that's been my calling card, since 2011. I come here and wholly, totally different, dynamic, totally different landscape, to where, it's like now 60% of the student body is, or probably even more than that, is white. um I was the only black kindergarten teacher. I was the only black male kindergarten teacher in our entire county. um and in a lot of spaces, I'm the only black person. A lot of spaces, we're the only black family there. When we go to the theater, usually we're the only black people there. When we go to restaurants, we're the only black people there. So it was a little bit different. But the white people that I've grown up knowing, they were all cool. Like, I have family members that dated white women. Um, my kid's aunt is white. Um, we got cousins that's white. We got white men in the family. So like, I'm no stranger to white people. I went to a PWI. I went to a predominantly white high school. So I'm not uncomfortable around white people, but that's also in New Jersey, where that culture, there was also like an extreme acceptance of black culture in New Jersey, and I don't think that that's the case down here. Um, so I brought the pizzazz. I brought who I was as a teacher to the classroom, and apparently this white woman, she didn't like it. And she's a paraprofessional, so she was basically there to help me in my classroom. And and unbeknownst to me, this woman was basically, um, excuse me, this woman was basically uh, informing on me. Anything that I did that kind of went against what she thought. Excuse me, y'all. Sorry, we just being real tonight. And anything that she thought didn't belong in the classroom, she was writing it down. The way I played with the children, the way that I joked with them, The types of jokes that I did were definitely on brand for, for black students. We talk about giving students whoopings and stuff like that, and that's how black people joke. That's how black people joke. But she didn't see it as that. She saw it as being totally unprofessional, and smiling in my face, asking me to help her with her college math courses, me helping her, pass exams and helping her with her homework, and giving her guidance on how to become a teacher and stuff like that. It was totally fine accepting my help, but behind my back, calling me an unprofessional and writing all this stuff about me. So I started in August of 2023, and everything was going fine. Thank you so much. Everything was going fine. Any observation that I had, it was top notch. People were coming to visit my classroom. I was always, being stopped in the hallway and teachers giving me props about how well behaved my class was. Even though I was teaching 5-year olds, the line was always straight. We were always quiet in the hallways. The only time we made noise was when we were on the playground and in our classroom learning. I had kids already you know, reading sight words, and on the verge of reading, like small chapter books, like a month and a half into the school year. So my method was working. Um, I didn't have to sin. I didn't have any behavioral issues in the classroom, except for a little boy who was, on medication. And the only time they really got in trouble was when they left my classroom. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate the sub. Make sure y'all hit that thumbs up button. The like button really helps us with our algorithm and to get to more and more people. And I'm just getting this off my chest, telling my testimony about the last 2 years working in this school district, as a black man from a liberal state, teaching in a very conservative and predominantly white school district that was founded and steeped in racism. So there's that too, right? So I forgive my rambles, forgive my extra yaps, but like where we live currently, and I love where we live. There's a lot of pride, and there's a huge sense of belonging living down here because this is where my grandfather and my great grandfather are from, but they grew up in the segregated South. So what's going on, Angelia? So we have, I've shown videos of the kids. Oh, there's a video of us performing at the Colonial Theater, which is downtown South Hill. That same theater, Danny was good. That same theater where my family has shared the stage with, performed in front of hundreds of people with, for. When my grandfather was a little boy, he couldn't even walk through the front door. He couldn't even sit on in the floor level. They had to sit in the balcony because blacks and whites couldn't mix. And while it's never come out fully to my face, I still feel like there's a lot of just like undercover racism that still goes on in these places, in these school systems. So getting back to this teacher, right? So she's a white girl, and I like to keep things as professionally common or professionally what's the word that I want to use? Um, Common is not it's not the right word, but I like to be cordial. I don't like to be always, if I'm working with you every day, we can be in a relaxed atmosphere. We can laugh, we can joke, we can find some common ground to talk about. Um, so, um, as I'm getting to know her, she obviously knew that I was married or whatever the case was, and you know, she said that she had been in a relationship. She had just got out of a relationship that was like going on 5 years or something like that. And the guy just, was a scrub and she was tired of dealing with him. Right. And she said that every relationship that she'd ever been in had failed. So I was like, oh, okay, now this is someone that I'm trying to you know, be familiar with as far as just like our work relationship. I would never, do anything crazy to make it anything go beyond, you know, colleague to colleague. But, if we're talking about relationships, I felt, like justified, or I felt comfortable enough asking her about the types of men that she dated as to why things weren't working out. So I asked her, what's her type? She told me her type. And then, and I didn't know this at the time, because I thought that she was cool with me. But obviously this wasn't. I asked her if she had ever dated a black guy, right? And she said no. And for this area, I didn't think that would be an off-brand comment or question to ask, because there is so much interracial dating. So much interracial dating. I don't know the statistics of interracial couples, but it's huge. It's huge. I feel like all my cousins date white women. All my cousins from down here date white women, and I've definitely run into my fair share of white women who date black guys. I have yet to find a white guy who dates black women down here, but definitely the white girls, they love the brothers. They love the brothers down here, and the brothers love the white girls. Um, so I didn't know that was an off-brand comment. Fast forward, we get to know one another a little bit more. I'm teaching, the kids are having fun. I'm getting so much positive feedback from the parents. The parents are like, Mr. P, they are my son is you're all he talks about. As soon as he comes home, you're all he talks about. They can't wait to get to your classroom. They love you so much. And oh, my man is doing a little much. Um, and again, the principal was always in my classroom, always asking me for pointers, always asking me for my input on on um, on systems, asking my thoughts on current systems that they were implementing. And like I said, anytime I had a formal observation, things that would go on my permanent record uh, as a teacher in the state of Virginia, they were all like stellar. Yeah, bro. Shout outs to all black male teachers. And if there are any other black male teachers out there, man, listen, we need y'all. We need y'all. Our kids need y'all. Our kids need us. And there needs to be more black male educators, not just in high school, not just in the upper grades, because you don't want to deal with the little ones. Like, we need more black male teachers at the at the front of, at the head of the snake when they're in kindergarten, pre-K, first grade. I know it doesn't make a lot of money, but God will make a way. Um, so what ends up happening? Um, so we start to get to know one another even more, and in the course of us getting to know one another more, I noticed that she was always watching black woman uh, hair videos, black woman makeup videos, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm low key obsessed with black women, and to be totally honest, I'm partially black," and I'm like, "Huh?" So she began to tell me about how she's a quarter Nigerian. Her father, or she's like 12.5% Nigerian. Her father is a quarter Nigerian. And she begins to tell me her family history about how her grandmother was never went to school, but her brother and sister did, because she thought that they always thought that her grandmother was black, was mixed. It's not fair, bro. It's not fair that we have to walk on eggshells. And these are the eggshells that I couldn't even have a simple conversation without this. Um, it was crazy. So she began to tell me all these things black, about her grandmother being black, but her grandmother was racist. Her grandmother was like super light skinned, but could pass as white. Um, but and they think that her grandmother's father, had an affair with a black woman, got her pregnant, and then they just took her. And then he later on married a white woman and had two kids by her. So her great grandfather had three kids. Two of them were full white, and one of them was mixed. The two full white kids went to school. The mixed child was hidden. Um, Even though she could pass as white, she was hidden from society, and she didn't go to school because the family didn't want um, them to know that she was mixed. Um, yeah. So when she says that to me feeling comfortable because we're divulging all this information, we're talking about relationships. We would tell. Well, I was the one that mostly told the jokes. She wasn't like a comedian like I was, but we were joking around all the time, sharing funny stories about the kids, whatever. So me hearing this information, I said, "Oh, no wonder your relationships didn't work. It's because you need to date a black man, right?" Um, and in retrospect, after finding out what happens later, I knew that that was a red flag, right? So some time goes by, and mind you, school started in August. It's now, let's fast forward to now. It is oh, two instances where where this whole walking on eggshells as a black male educator comes in. um, before the school day started, the kids would come in and have their breakfast. We'd be watching like PBS Kids or whatever the case is, and I'm seeing these 5 year olds just come together and they start playing with one another. They start running around the classroom. Well, there's no running around in Mr. P's classroom, um, but because Mr. P don't play those games. But they would come in the classroom. They would play with one another. They would talk about their toys. They would show each other different things. They would share snacks and all that. White and black kids, and I just observing the classroom, just watching them, and I'm like, yo, this is so beautiful. Like these little white boys in my classroom. I could literally see them as like my little sons because they were so cool. They were so used to me. They loved me. They would come in like these little white boys would come into the classroom and hug me, you know. So I posted a message on Facebook like, watching my students interact with one another shows me that racism is taught and not inerrant, right? Love the content. Keep it going. Big Ben, what up? Um, and an hour later, the principal is coming in my room saying that another administrator saw it and they wanted to know what I meant by that, and that it came off as problematic. How people could see it the weird way. And I'm like, what weird way? Like the kids are playing. So I broke it down to her, and then she's like, well, when they read it, that's not how they saw it. And I'm like, well, I didn't know what to do with that. It kind of pissed me off in a moment because it's just like I now see the type of white people that I was working with, and I'm not gonna lie, it rubbed me the wrong way because one, I don't have no issues with white people. you know Two, I'm not from Virginia, so I don't have that stigma of being a second class, viewed as a second class citizen. You know what I'm saying? In New Jersey, uh, especially the parts that I grew up in, we didn't have to worry about how white people viewed us because, like, we were just doing our own thing. It was what it was, though. So that was kind of weird because I didn't think there was anything wrong with the post, and nobody took it as, like we teach racism here. But apparently that's what they thought. And then secondly, there was a one time where I wore a head wrap because I had locks at the time. Shout outs to India. I had locks at the time, and they had an issue with that. They had an issue with that, and asked me not to wear the head wrap anymore. And I felt some kind of way about it, but then I was just like, you know what? I don't necessarily need to wear these to school. It is what it is. Um, I just won't wear it, right? So fast forward, it's now August. We're in a groove. The students are excelling. Kids who didn't know how to read prior to coming in my class were now reading. There was one girl who couldn't tell the difference between the letter B and the number two. It's starting to click for her. She loved Mr. P. She was, it was just, these are becoming my kids. I used to call them the Avengers. And when we were at recess, and it's time to come in, I would just be like, Avengers assemble, and then they would all from all over the playground, they'll just come in and line up. Um, and this one particular day, this kid, I'm not gonna say his name, but he was having an off day. Um, I believe he had some degree of autism, but just like high functioning to the point to where the boy was a genius. He was definitely the smartest kid in both kindergarten and first grade in that school. But just had some social awkwardness. Would always have this like blank stare on everything, but he knew all of his letters, he knew all of his colors, he knew all of his numbers, he could count to 150. He could do simple mathematics. His handwriting was sloppy, but so is every doctor's handwriting, right? This kid was a genius, but would just have these fits. And I remember before the school year even started, when people would see my list, my roster of students, they were like, "Oh, you got this kid? We're gonna call his name Fuquan. Oh, you got Fuquan? Oh, Fuquan is a handful. He couldn't even stay an entire day in school last year. He's on medication. I haven't even met this kid, and they're already sharing their horror stories. But I also have to look at the contents in which the context in which these stories were looked at. These all were accounts coming from white women. And again, I don't have no problems with white women. I got a woman in my life who's known me my entire life, who I call my mom. Shout outs to Mary China. And they just didn't want to deal with him because he was hyperactive. He might have had, some ADHD or something like that. But I know how to deal with our kids because I have five beautiful black sons. So I knew how to handle him. Was he a handful? Yeah. But because I'm firm and loving, I was able to give him what he needed in class, and he hardly ever had issues in my class. But this particular day, he wouldn't stay in line. He wouldn't hold my hand. He was running up and down the class, the hallways, and I threatened to call his dad, which is like the last straw for me because usually I handle things in house. And I told him, I said, "Boy, if you don't cut it out, I'm gonna put your desk in the bathroom." Right? And I actually did. I put his desk in the bathroom, and I said, "Do you want to sit here? Do you want to be in this bathroom all day long?" Empty threats, black culture. The same thing like your mother say, "Boy, you know I will put my foot in your," right? But did they ever do it? No. I beat the black off you. That's stuff that we say to one another. But mom, it's just we exaggerate stuff as people. That's just how we are as black people. So we have these empty threats, these ways that we go about saying things, but it's just empty threats. And he calmed down for a little bit, so I take the desk out of the bathroom. Mind you, him and the desk were never in the bathroom at the same time. And I put him in the bathroom. I told him the door is open, and I'm like, "Hey, go to the bathroom. This is where you're going to be for the rest of the day." And I close the door. He opens the door. I close the door. He opens the door. And then I see he starts doing the pee-pee dance. So I tell him to go to the bathroom. And I close the door and make sure that he goes to the bathroom. He comes out, and then I think they have recess. And I think, and he still just wouldn't calm down that day. So now it's beyond me. All of my methods are not working. So he needs to go home for the day, because I think he was like growing. He was a big boy too. He was a solid 70 pounds, had to be 5 years old, 70 pounds, maybe 60, but he was a big boy, and he would always be outgrowing his medicine, because when you're that young, they give you medicine based off of your weight, the dosages. And the medicine wasn't working. It wasn't lasting all day like it usually did. So his parents were going. I called the office and told them to come and get him. That day also, the paraprofessional was not in the classroom, so I was there all day by myself, and it's no big deal because I always handle my class. Can't voice our opinion on private channels. That's crazy, man. There's so much people there. These schools are so worried about being sued. That's what it is. And to a degree, I get it, but they are going to rule us to death, to where it's just like you might as well just get a robot to teach these kids, right? Um, so the next day comes, and I think he went to go see one of the counselors. And as he goes to see the counselor, which he'd always done, and he come and then the principal comes. I forget the order of events, but somehow or another, it gets reported that I locked him in the bathroom, like against his will type stuff. But this is also like a 5-year-old who is hyperactive, who has maybe ADHD, who might be on the spectrum. You know, again, he's 5, and not really understanding the nuances of what was happening, right? So out of his mouth, and the way they took it was like I forced him into this bathroom. And the principal comes in and talks to me, and I explained to her everything that happens. And when I left her office, everything was fine. Everything was fine, or so I thought. So this might have been a Tuesday, a Monday, or whatever. Um, that Thursday, it was like right before Halloween. Halloween was a Saturday. That Thursday, yeah, it was a Thursday right before Halloween, 2023. And I get called into the office, and I noticed that the paraprofessional is acting really weird. She's talking about moving her class. You know, she's not going to be in my classroom anymore. Um, She starts saying that she doesn't know what's going on. She never thought that it was, going to end up like this. This is the measures that they're taking. I didn't ask for this. I just asked to be moved. And I'm like, you asked to be moved? Like what's going on? I'm like totally blindsided. Now, mind you, other people on our floor, other kindergarten teachers knew what was going on. And these people um, smiled in my face whenever they had an issue with their classroom, whenever they had issue with their boys, whenever the girls was, white or black, whenever, they were having issues with the girls that was a little too talkative, too hyperactive for them. They could always send them to Mr. P's class because they knew that Mr. P knew how to handle children. I know how to be, as a father, I'm a disciplinarian, right? That's not all I do. I know how to be compassionate towards my kids, but I also know that there's a line, you know, the Bible says that we train up a child in the way that they should go, so when they get old, they won't, and when they get old, they won't depart from it. So I don't coddle kids. I push them to be their best selves in every aspect. Um, and and yeah, so they would always send their kids. It's like five kindergarten class, and every day there was another student in my classroom that wasn't on my roster, because my team knew that they could send the kids to me and that I would hold them down. And I had no problems with that. I loved that. That way I could get to know more kids. That way I get to show them how students are supposed to act. Because when they come into my classroom, they see that all of my kids, they're sitting down. They got their hands folded on their desk so that they don't fidget and mess with other people. Right? They got, when it's time to do their work, they're doing their work and they're doing it neatly. They're doing it quietly. They're sitting in their seats. They're not calling out, because I've set order in my classroom, just like I set order in my house. Right? So, that's what the word was. That's how I roll, man. And, I got the best out of these kids. I remember even one day we had went to picture day, and my kids, my 5-year-olds, were standing in a straight line, just having a conversation to the people next to them. They weren't running around the gym. And mind you, we're surrounded by 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, and they're all loud talking. The photographers can't even get a word in because these kids are just talking so loudly and being disruptive. The teachers are threatening them, but the kids know that it's BS, so they're not even respecting them. But then they see my 5-year-olds who I've only had for 2 months, standing in a straight line, just behaving themselves, taking their picture and then going into the line and being quiet, right? Because it's a time and place for everything. The teacher's asking me, how do you get them to be so good? What are you doing? Did it, stuff like that. So now I'm in the office talking to not just the principal, but the assistant principal and the director of human resources. And man, they hit me with a doozy. They began to ask me all these questions because the paraprofessional in my classroom was reporting on me to them, that she had a 4-page complaint on Mr. P. Four-page complaint. I don't know what they was trying to hit me with, bro. They began to ask me all these questions, and they brought up the whole bathroom incident, and I laid it out for them again. And then I kept it honest, because I'm not a liar. I also, in those instances, they suggest that you call the teachers union, but I wasn't a part of the teachers union because I already don't make enough to feed my family for real. And, I don't need the teachers union taking extra money out of my check that the government is already taking so much out of my check. Right? So they asked these questions about, me interacting with kids. So this woman was complaining that the kids were too noisy. She had a complaint about me telling the kids to say that they were crazy. All silly stuff because I am the life of the party in my classroom. My kids, they love me, like that Miss Rachel energy. Who else? Any talk show with kids where they had that, those really exuberant adults that, and not in a weird way because I'm not weird, but like can really get the best out of kids, get them to open up so that they can have fun. Again, that's my background. That's who I am. But again, I never had a complaint from a parent. I've never had a write up. I've never had any unprofessional reports from anybody else. But this woman has 4 pages on me. She even reported on me that my mom came that my so so one day we was in we were doing a read aloud, and the kids were being a little extra noisy. So I said, "Oh, y'all want to talk? Y'all want to talk and won't behave?" Again, I'm playing around with these kids. They're enjoying it. They're loving it. They're cracking up, having a great time. So I said, you know what? I'm going to call my mom. So I called my mom on speaker phone, and my mom said, "Oh, you guys are not listening to my son?" My mother, who was 60 years old at the time, says, "I'm going to come up there with my switch, and whoever's not behaving, they're going to get it." And these kids fell out laughing, cracking up, because again, that's what we do as black people, man. That's what we do. That's how we play. That's how we joke. But apparently she didn't see that. She saw it as unprofessional that I got on my phone and called my mom, and that my mom threatened these children. My mom is a pastor. My mother is 60 years old. Um, and the Bible talks about, to the pure, all things are pure. So there's that. So that was in the letter. And then me asking her if she would ever, if she would ever be with a black guy, that was also in the letter. And they spent a lot of time asking that question. They spent a lot of time asking that, definitely reaching. Such a reach. Spent a lot of time asking about this question about her being with a black guy. So I'm not a dummy. The tone of the conversation switches from the students and me joking with them and her having a problem with it to now focusing on me asking her if she dated black guys before. And so now I'm looking at the human. I'm like, wait, is this a sexual, like a sexual harassment type situation now? Do I need to get a lawyer? Do I need to get the union rep or something like that? Like what is going on now? Because literally this woman, the principal, she was just going through this is not it, but she's just going through this complaint like page after page. And it's literally a 4-page letter of jokes of stuff that happened between August and the beginning of October. And the way she read it, you would think that all of this stuff happened in like a week. So while they had me in the principal's office talking to human resources, there was another assistant principal in my classroom doing an investigation. Doing an investigation with my kindergarten class. And I couldn't go back to my classroom. They had me sitting in the waiting room, writing a statement. And of course, I'm being honest in the statement. And they put me on administrative leave, pending the results of a child services investigation. So I was being investigated for like child neglect or something like that, because it had been alleged that I locked this kid in the bathroom against his will. Right? So that's October. And talk about feeling like a piece of crap. Bro, that was one of the worst days of my life, because I could not fathom how someone could see me in that light. How someone could see me in that light and try to paint me to be like some kind of monster. Now, there was definitely monsters working at that school. But no one was reporting on the monsters. That's crazy. Rubber room, that's wild. So I left that day, head hanging low. I was distraught. Like, cause I couldn't believe that this was happening to me. 1, 2, 3 Cancun. So it was definitely it was just crazy that it was going down like that. So now they got child services involved, and I'm on administrative leave. Thank God it was administrative leave, because had it was administrative leave with pay, because there was no way, like, my family was going under. We would have been done if it was without pay. So I thank God that that was the course that they took. And it took forever for child services to conduct this investigation because, like, the district, we down here in the rural South, they got one of everything, pretty much. If you got two of the same profession, you are blessed and highly favored. So for it's not a big district, but there's a lot of land to cover, and there's thousands of people down here, and there's one person that does all the investigating. So it took them to around like after Thanksgiving for them to even call me into to child services to even discuss the allegations. And by the time and when I got there and talked to the lady, and there was also a police officer there. When I laid it out for them, told them everything, and told them all the facts, and gave my perspective of what was happening compared to the notes and the complaints that were being brought up against me. And these are people who have actual sense, who understand nuance in relationships, who understand different dynamics in relationships. Um, they looked at me this like, "Sir, Mr. Purefoy, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you. You should not be here." And these are two white people now. The investigator is a white woman, and the police officer was a white man. And this white officer, he said, "Hey, please, can I just shake your hand? Because seeing you," and I'm like in this meeting, and I'm like in tears because they literally took my kids away from me. They literally took my students. And if you've ever seen me like with a group of kids, you'll see how passionate I am about young people, which is why I father so hard, which is why, I've been able to get a lot of success as a teacher, is because I'm passionate about, I know kids, bro. So he said, "I just got to shake your hand because I see how passionate you are. These kids were lucky to have you as your teacher. It's unfortunate that these things come up. But I can for certain say that there was no criminal activity going on here." So this white man who'd only known me for this hour-long chat that we had at child services was able to discern that I was an okay guy and that children were lucky to have me in their lives. He could see the love and passion. And I believe that was the Holy Spirit working on him, because this man don't know me. Never see me in action. Never saw all the visitors that would come to my classroom to see the magic that was Mr. P's room. Right? But here we are. And they said I'm gonna write this up as that there was no neglect that happened here. These allegations are unfounded. And they put it in writing, and they sent it to the school. And then did the school allow me to come back after the allegations were unfounded? Nope. The principal of the school sent me an email and a letter in the mail saying that she was going to recommend to the school board that I be terminated from Mecklenburg County Public Schools. They wanted me fired, bro. Had me on administrative leave for a month and a half. And this is so crazy. And I thank God. I thank God for that time away, man. Because we Like I was able to be at home. We had a new baby. Um, and I wasn't really I wasn't able to take off for him. We had just moved into a new house, the rental, and we had all these things going on. We had a women's convention that year. Christmas was coming up, and I was able to make all of those events and be present. Um, and all those things, man. And I thank God for that. Um, and I didn't have to take off no days or anything like that. Able to be with my family. And so the week before my birthday, the week that I turned 40, I get an email from my from the principal saying that she wanted me terminated. And then I think the day before that, we found out that we were pregnant again. Oh man. We found out that we were pregnant again with Isaiah. Yeah. So we yeah. I messed up some stuff in there. But yeah, we had just found out we were pregnant again, and I was about to get fired, and I'm turning 40. Right? So I couldn't even really enjoy my birthday too much. I couldn't really enjoy the news of this new baby because I still had this cloud hanging over my head, you know? And you got to be careful. And, I'm about to get a little spiritual right now. You got to be careful of what you put your focus on when you are going through a storm, right? Because so often the devil wants to have us focus on the problem, the problem, this finite thing that, within the course of the time is going to uh, be figured out and solved and, fixed. He wants us to only look at this. And when we should be focusing on God. And I'm just glad that I had, a praying wife, a praying family, who was holding me down with prayer when I was in a state where I couldn't see God because I was too preoccupied with focusing on my problem, too preoccupied with focusing on, well, what am I going to do for work? Find another job, Sean. But I couldn't see past that because along with these allegations, people began, because I wasn't there to defend myself at the school, people at the school began to look at me funny. So when I would see them in Walmart, the same people who were breaking their necks to say hi to me and to ask me about my family and to ask me about my classroom, were now, when they saw me in public, they act like they didn't see me. They didn't have too many words then. They would see us on the soccer field and then act like they didn't know Mr. P. Because I asked a white woman if she had ever been with a black man. Had nothing, and the things that she was trying to fire me for had nothing to do with this child services investigation. They wanted to fire me over cell phone usage and jokes that I told in class. That one, all the kids got. And never, again, there was never a parent complaint. There was, all of my observations were top tier. I was doing my job within the confines of the rules. Did I use my phone in class? Yes. But what teacher isn't on their phone in class? If you got downtime, you're going to use your phone. If you need to look up something, you're going to use your phone. I had Class Dojo on my phone. I had to communicate with parents, send them pictures. Because again, that's the culture where I come from. That's the culture. That's the type of educator that I was. I'm gonna keep you informed. All my parents knew what was going on in the classroom at all times. They knew when their child was being celebrated. They also knew when their child was being disciplined. So yes, I'm on my phone. Yes, I did call my mom to let them meet my mom. Let my students meet my mom in a funny encounter. Yes. But that's what they wanted to fire me over. So fast forward, they say, you can have a formal hearing and with the school board if you want to refute this firing. I said, all right. So I had to wait. So now it's December. Christmas break is about to happen. I'm still getting paid. I'm still, with my family, and it's all good. So they scheduled this hearing for early January. And before the hearing, I meet with the superintendent of the school, of the district, and a human resources guy. And they basically wanted me to resign. They say, yeah, we want to give you the opportunity to resign from your position because it looks a lot better for you. Let's say, because this is public information, and let's say this makes it to the newspaper, it would look a lot better. And this is what human resources is saying to me. It looks a lot better if the headline said teacher resigns from position rather than teacher was terminated from position. So they tried to get me to resign, told me to mull it over or whatever, but I could take it to the school board and have a hearing, but there was no guarantee that I would win the hearing. And I'm like, bro, like, what do I didn't do anything wrong. They moved me from my position because of this woman's complaint, who had already admitted to being affiliated with racists. And I don't like to play the race card all the time because, I don't like to, everything ain't about race. But if the only questions that you're putting serious emphasis and energy into is the question that me asking a white woman if she'd ever been with a black man, if that's all, then it kind of sounds like it's about race. So it was hard to have joy during that time. I ain't gonna lie. This was during the end of soccer season, and it was hard to have joy. It was hard to smile. It was hard. It was hard to do to just be myself, because like this cloud was just hanging over me. I really could not see my way out. And I literally had to have, the Lord had to give me daily bread, daily encouragement, because just as quickly as he would reassure me that he had me and that he would take care of me and that all would be well, would be just as quickly that I would start to think that I'm such a failure. I can't believe this is happening. What is my family going to do? How am I going to provide? All these different things. And I remember one day I was taking a walk and I told the Lord, like, Lord, what is this? I know you told me not to worry. I know you told me that I got it, but I don't know how to not worry. I don't know how to not be concerned about this situation, Lord. I don't know how to do this. And then the Holy Spirit was just like, all right, cool, I got you. And y'all, I tell you, when I said that, Lord, I don't know how to do this, the presence of God began to like cover me like a blanket. And it was tangible. It was just like, when you are when you on your bed and you got your comforter and you throw it up and you just let the comforter just like cascade over you, right? Your blanket or your sheet, and like it doesn't all hit you at one point, but like in small it hits your head first, and then your chin, and then your chest, and then it just starts to cover each part of your body separately. Um, um, that's what the Holy Spirit did for me, y'all. And I felt it, and I felt comforted. I felt empowered. I felt powerful. I felt emboldened. I felt like everything was going to be all right. I didn't feel scared. I felt like somebody was in my corner. I felt heard. I felt seen. And I knew that everything was going to be all right. So we scheduled this hearing. It was in January, right around Raylan's birthday. We went to Great Wolf Lodge. And I wasn't even going to go to Great Wolf Lodge because the enemy was still dealing with me and making me feel depressed and causing me to feel depressed. Um, and I was just going to stay home while they went up there. But then, like, why give the devil so much leeway, man? Sometimes we as Christians, we be some punks not walking in the victory that Christ has already given us through his resurrection power, right? So I wound up going with the family to Great Wolf Lodge, and we had a blast. If you haven't seen that vlog, make sure you check it out. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I leave the family at Great Wolf Lodge to go to this hearing. And when I go to this hearing, it's like 12 people from the school board sitting up on this like high podium thing. And then it's the people from the school, human resources, and the superintendent there. And before I leave, I asked my family to pray for me because, they knew what was going on, but they didn't know what was going to happen after that. Right? What's going on, everybody? If you could just hit that thumbs up button. I'm bearing my soul right now. Late night chat. And I asked my family to pray for me. I asked all the kids to just pray. And before I left the hotel. And Sean prays. He said, Lord, please bless my dad so that he doesn't lose his job. And I was like, awesome. I love it. Thank you, son. Thank you for praying for me. Then Raylan says, Lord, please bless my dad. Bless our YouTube channel. That's what she says. She says, bless our YouTube channel so that my daddy doesn't have to work anymore and he can just stay home and we could just do this. And I said, thank you, baby, because that's always been my desire. I always want to be a full-time YouTuber, right? And then my firstborn daughter, Ariana Renee, she starts praying, man. She goes, Lord, I pray that everything works out, that my dad doesn't lose his job. But Lord, please help us to know that if he does lose his job, help us to know that everything is going to be all right. Yo, Ari, this was 2024. So this was last year. Ari she'll be 14 this year. So she was 12 at the time. My 12-year-old daughter prayed that prayer. Father, if it don't work out the way that we want it to work out, help us to know that it's still going to work out. That's what my daughter prayed for me. That's how my daughter prayed. My 12-year-old daughter prayed for me like that. And when she prayed that prayer, y'all, I said, oh no, there's no way I'm walking into this hearing and I'm going to lose. There's no way. There's no way I can lose. I knew right then and there that I had the victory. And the Lord made it very clear to me, like, this is why you had to go through this. This is why you're going through this, so that your children will know how to pray, will know how to get to in touch with the Lord, will know what it's like to walk by faith and not by sight. Because even though I was depressed, even though I was sad, even though, you know, I wasn't as joyful as I usually am, we still showed up to church every Sunday. We still showed up to Bible study. We still prayed. We still gave God our all. We still tithed. We still had faith. We still did everything we knew to do in Christ. Our praise never changed. Were there moments of doubt? Yeah. Were there moments of fear? Of course. But God sustained us, man. And when she prayed like that, man, I couldn't do nothing but cry. I couldn't do nothing. I was a mess. I said, "Oh my God." And I began to just weep for joy. And I knew right then we had the victory. So I get to this hearing, and they have like a whole squad on the right side. It's the superintendent, two assistant principals, the principal, and human resources guy. And and it's just me on the other side. I don't have no representation. I don't even know how these hearings really work. I misunderstood what I could and could bring, or whatever the case is. But long story short, concerning this hearing, was that the principal made it very clear that that she didn't like me anymore, and that I was no longer I was no longer the teacher that she wanted in her building. She said, I don't want him in my school. She wanted me gone. Not because I, was found not guilty. It wasn't even like nothing to be found guilty of, but the allegations were unfounded, meaning that they had no basis to stand on. I'm not a child abuser. Still one of the best teachers in the school, best observations, professional, all these things. But even with that, she didn't want me in her school because I guess I played too much. And I was able to cross-examine them, so I got a chance to play lawyer for a little bit. And we're going back and forth. The school board is asking their questions, and they're confused as to they looked at the investigation that they did with the kindergarten class, and they were extremely confused as to how could y'all come up with this conclusion that some wrong was being done based off of these testimonies from 5-year-olds. But when somebody when somebody wants to do you harm, they will use anything. They become Stretch Armstrong with the reach to get any dirt on you, anything that remotely looks like something that could harm you, they'll use it. Because the devil is the accuser of the brethren, man. That's what the word says. So, but the thing that pissed me off in the hearing was when the superintendent got up and gave his closing remarks. He said, and this is something that is seared in my memory. He said, "Here at Mecklenburg County Public Schools, we strive to have classrooms that educate our children and make them feel as safe as possible." He then says, out his mouth, "Mr. Purefoy has done none of those things, and we feel like he should be terminated." And then they gave me the last word. And I was so upset that he said that, because it was an absolute lie. This man really lied on my name in front of the school board, because my students always felt safe in my classroom. My students only got in trouble. They only got written up. They only got sent home, except for one kid one time from school, was when they were with other teachers who did not know how to handle them or didn't care to handle them. Because if there's no write-ups in my classroom, why are they getting written up every day in your classroom? That shows you that's two different types of people. Someone who cares and someone who doesn't care. Because if you care, you'll try to figure out the problem and try to do what's best. You'll change how you approach things so that the kid can feel secure and set up for success in your space. Someone who doesn't care wants the child to fit into the preconceived mold that they have, that the one size fits all model. And if they look like me, especially the black boys and black girls, very low tolerance, quick to suspend. Y'all should see some of these discipline reports that they have on these kids from kindergarten. They got these kids like charges, like they like they're criminals. 5-year-olds, really? Anyway, so I told the school board right in front of this man, and the superintendent is white. I said, he's a liar. Ain't no way that's the truth, because first of all, my classroom has always been safe. Never been a complaint, never failed an observation, always had stellar reviews, and people coming to my classroom, sending their kids to my classroom when they have issues. And I know that my kids are learning because I have data to prove it. Out of all the kindergarten classes, I had the most kids achieving at a higher level due to my teaching and my methods. And then, on top of that, the same superintendent who said that my classroom wasn't safe and that I wasn't teaching kids the right way, he came to my classroom to observe. He was one of the people who came to my classroom to observe and shook my hand when he came to my classroom and looked me in my face and told me to my face, "You're doing a great job." My methods is just love kids. Love kids and teach them. Hold them accountable. Just because they're 5 doesn't mean that they can't listen, that they're incapable of listening. So this man lied at a public hearing in front of elected officials to just get me up out of there, man. And they said all they had to say, and they closed down the hearing, and they told me that they would be back. They would get back to me with the verdict. And as we're leaving, I never felt so cool in my life. I never felt so calm and collected. I never felt so just at ease. The Bible talks about God giving us peace that passes all understanding. So like I was definitely at peace. But the others, oh, whew, especially that principal, her face was all screwed up. She was all sorts of pissed off and visibly upset. But I even said in my closing remarks, I said, I hope one day that, this is just something that happened, and that one day, if I see him at Walmart, we can high five and kumbaya, all those things. Do we really have to turn everything into a race? I don't. Well, you just got here, so you don't know. You don't know everything that I said. Um, so some time goes by, and I get the verdict back that I would not be terminated from employment in Mecklenburg County. Um, and to be totally honest, man, I was already like done here because it's just like people were so phony, man. So phony. I have a real big issue. I have a real big issue with people who are all up my butt, smiling and, using me for what they can get out of me, and when when they hear something unfavorable, even though it was totally false, um, even though it was unfounded and false and just rubbish, um, they switched up. And what was hurtful, man, was that, you know, they if they ever had an issue in their classroom, they had no problem texting, emailing, coming to my classroom to see if I could handle the situation or help them out. Um, but when I was going through that situation, not one of them reached out to ask if I was okay. No, not one of them. Not one of them. And that hurt. That hurt. That hurt a lot. Um, February comes around, so now I've been on administrative leave from October, the end of October to now is Black History Month. And then so they didn't put me out of the district, but they reassigned me to to the alternative education program. And it's a little bit different. Very different from what I had been exposed to when I first got to the district, because these are going to be middle school and high school kids. Middle school and high school kids, and these are the kids that nobody wants in the classroom. These kids who are habitual offenders, who they just want them out of sight and out of mind, and that's where they put me. And I went from having a 13-minute drive from home to work to now having to drive over a half an hour. And one of the reasons why I even took this district job was because it was closer to home. I just wanted to be closer to home. I took a pay cut so that I could be closer to home. And I justified it by saying, well, the less money I spend on gas, will make up for the difference that I'm losing out on by changing from Kip, North Carolina to Mecklenburg County Public Schools, right? So that was one of the big factors. And plus, I wanted to be in the same community that my church is in, because my church is right down the street from the school that I was working at, right? So they moved me to the alternative education program. And man, it was way different. But I did have some experience with stuff like that, because when I was in Orange, New Jersey, public schools, I was with emotional disabled and behavioral disability kids. So I was used to stuff like this. However, because they didn't know me, and because these kids had been there, some of them for years, it took a while for them to accept to accept me. And I don't even know if they fully accepted me, but it was what it was. And these were some big kids, man. These kids was cussing. Some of these kids had juvenile records. Most of these kids have been suspended more than 10 times since they were in kindergarten. These kids were, it's mostly black kids, and there were a few white kids in the program. The principal over that program was black, and most of the people working there were black. So culturally, it was a little more familiar. Um, but the the parameters surrounding this program was crazy. These kids were always under surveillance. The building that they had us in was basically like an old basement, an old school, an old wing of a school that was always having plumbing issues, um, a whole bunch of different things, man. And the circumstances between the circumstances that they had these kids in was crazy. Was crazy. Um, that's all I can say. There was no real teaching. They put the kids on this program, this computer program that they were supposed to work on all day long. They were to stay in one classroom all day long, except for lunch and maybe recess. Sometimes, if they had good behavior, these kids the rules were even more strict. These kids had to wear a uniform. They had to be wanded and patted down every day. They had they couldn't even step foot on school grounds. So they had to get dropped off at a bus that would take them to a different location. And and these kids, it was like one and done. If they messed up, if they were out of dress code, if they cussed, if they fought, if they broke any of the rules, if they were on a different website than their school website, then they got suspended at the drop of a dime. It was it was really like prison. It was really like prison for these middle school and high school kids. Now, of course, some of them did stuff that probably would warrant some kind of, that would put them in juvenile detention. You know what I'm saying? I get that part. But, it's still, if they're not in jail, then why are we treating them why are we treating it like jail? They could only go to the bathroom one person at a time. And, not for nothing, some of these systems had to be in place because a lot of these kids just had terrible, terrible, terrible upbringings and had to do a lot of surviving and not a lot of living. A lot of them lacked just just a good foundation and just strong parenting that would help them in life. A lot of the times these kids struggled with authority. So of course when they see me uh in this authoritative position, I'm already a threat. And if it wasn't for the fact, and this has been my saving grace, if it wasn't for the fact that I have a crazy sneaker game, and can dress a little bit, and I'm with the culture, it would have been a wrap. It would have been a wrap. And because I'm still that same guy. I might not be doing all the cheers and the corny stuff that I did with my kindergartners, but at the same time, I got grown black boys too. Jaden and Xavier, right? And I've taught middle school. I came from middle school before I taught here. I was teaching sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, and at KIP in North Carolina. So I was very familiar with middle school because I've been doing it since 2019. I did it for what 3, 4 years, so I get it. Um, and Yeah, it was a struggle, man. It was a struggle. The kids, they just cuss all the time. They didn't want to do their work. They would sleep. They would get into these crazy confrontational arguments all the time. It was pandemonium, pandemonium, and they were always trying to get something up out of you, you know, like just hustlers. They were survivors. These kids weren't learning, and they were on this computer program that that was for grade level people, for students who were on grade level. But most of the children in that program are not on grade level because a lot of them spent a lot of time out of school on suspension. So they're not at home learning, and then they're supposed to watch this computer all day long and get lessons from that. That's not going to work. Why do you think all of our students got dumber during COVID? Because kids are not designed to learn everything on a computer. They can't just sit there and absorb informational text on a computer. They need concepts broken down. They need nuance. Things that, as cool as Khan Academy is, as cool as, all of these Common Core programs is, as cool as YouTube is, there's that human element that you're always going to miss. That student to teacher dynamic that you're always going to miss when you have to be on a computer. So they're not getting the concepts, and they're still failing, and they're not doing the work. They're skipping. They're cheating on the assessments because they're looking up answers on Google and all this other stuff. So it was always a struggle. And I remember one day I left the school, and I was pissed off because these kids, they would just get on they would just really just push me and just be so disrespectful, and I wore it because I knew that they just needed someone to not give up on them. I knew that they just needed someone to love them. I knew that if my love for them was stronger than their disrespect for me, that one day they would turn it around. And then slowly but surely, we would be able to turn it around. At some days, we would start off the day with prayer, and we would do all these different things, and they were actually learning. I was able to teach them concepts, even though that was not a part of my job description. I was just supposed to monitor them and make sure that they were sitting down, not getting in trouble, monitor them on the bathroom, make sure that they're doing their work on this computer. And then we would have like these social emotional lessons to talk about, you know, different ways to handle their anger management and, life skills type stuff. But seldomly did we get that because there was always something. There was always a fight. There was always somebody sneaking in drugs. I remember 3 weeks into the program, this boy comes into the program with, pretend this is a jewelry box full of weed in the 6th grade to sell. So that's the type of stuff I was dealing with. And I remember leaving one day and being so frustrated because they were just acting wild, not afraid to go back and forth with you. And I get a call from my old job. Why didn't I take that? Why didn't I call them? I don't know how they expected people who didn't graduate high school to teach kids, but there's a lot of things that don't make sense about what we do in this country. And I I I considered, I really really considered taking that job, but I didn't want to leave the kids, so I never called her back. And looking back on it, um, looking back on it, I probably, burned a bridge. I don't know, but I stuck. Hello, 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 hello. Are we there? Somebody said it cut out. Ariana just told me that it cut out. Not sure why it cut out. Can y'all see me? Can y'all hear me? Are we good? I'm back. What was the last thing y'all heard? Because I know I was just reflecting. BX Finest Coco. Who is that? Um, what was the last thing y'all heard? Aria Maya's mom. Hey, hey, what's up? Oh, dag. I might have burned a bridge with the job. So I didn't take my old job back because they asked me to come in with a position. I should have. But the Bible says that all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Right? And I didn't want to abandon these kids because these kids had already been abandoned. Right? So I finished out the school year. I didn't go back to KIP. And we started the new year. I felt like, I was very optimistic about the new school year. It's 2024, 2025 year. The kids were going to at least get their work done. And my job was to make sure that they got everything that they needed so that they would get out of the alternative learning program. All they had to do was just, complete a certain percentage of work. And the bare minimum, they had to have a 60 average. They had to have a 60 average. So basically, just like a hair above an F, a D minus average, and then they could go back to regular school. Started off the year fine. I had a new student in my classroom. I set expectations for them. I did my best to set them up for success. And then I started to develop like real cool relationships with this new kid in my class. He wasn't really too beat for school, had an attitude problem, was very defensive, was always quick to, have these verbal spats with kids and all this stuff like that, but really didn't like school, didn't really like um, the environment, was always complaining, was always back, talking back and all this other stuff like that. But one week, it was around his birthday, and I told him if he had a good week, that I would give him a birthday present at the end of the week. And he didn't have a good week, but again, I tried to show as much grace and love to these kids as possible, and that's just the way it works for me. So I was working two jobs at the time. I was working at a convenience store in town. I told him if you pull up to the convenience store, I got you on something. It's on me. Sure enough, because he got a big back, and I love him. He came to the store, him and his mom, and I let him get whatever he wanted in the store. He was all smiles, and I told him that I would also, if he wanted some purpose, if he wanted to do something with himself, I give him a job at my church. And because we needed some help with our audio visual for our live stream, and he said, "All right, cool." I didn't think that he was serious, but the man showed up to church on Sunday. And I was blown away. And I put him right to work. I showed him how to work OBS. I taught him how to do the live stream. I taught him how to do all this stuff. And ever since then, the boy has not left my side. He gave his life to the Lord. He came with us to the youth convention. The Lord touched his heart and he began to walk with Jesus. I don't got no amens in the chat, but he began to walk with Jesus from this encounter. And you know, I believe that the Lord sent me there just for him. I do believe that. I do believe that. Um, and he joined our church, and he's been an integral part of our church family and the growth of our church. Um, and he spends so much time with us. My kids love him, and you know he's like my sixth son. And I just love the kid to pieces, man. But in the midst of that, we were joking around, um, and you know, like black folks, we got our lingo, right? We got our lingo, and one day he wasn't having a good day, and he said he was going to take something from me. And this was during the time where I was having this episode of sciatica, so I could barely walk. I felt really vulnerable and kind of defenseless. But at the same time, I know this kid. Um, I loved him. I love him like my own child. And he said, "Mr. P, I'm about to take this thing from you." And I said, "Boy, if you come over here, I'm gonna punch you in the throat." Said it just like that. And then I don't know who it was. I don't know who it was, but it could have only been two people. But someone heard me say that joke and reported it to HR. And then I was back in human resources again. And they had to launch another investigation. And they put me on administrative leave again and then reassigned me because I was threatening a child. Mind you, when they asked him what, about what I said to him, about my joke to him, he said, yeah, he took it as a joke. They had it on camera. These kids were under 24-hour surveillance. Yeah, teaching, you would really have to, especially in these district schools, because all they're worried about is, getting sued, and they don't want to be, held accountable for somebody. You got to really reel it in. And I guess I just did not get that concept. So they took me out of the classroom altogether and put me behind a desk answering phones for the transportation department. So that's what I did from January to this week. And I got a letter from the superintendent saying that he was going to recommend to the board that I not be renewed for a contract next year. So now I don't have a job for next year. So YouTube has got to work. YouTube just has to work, man. YouTube has just got to work because there's always been this battle with me and education. If it's not an administrator being crazy and off the hook, Um, it's some student doing something crazy and getting me caught up. And I know I don't have no problems. Like, like I'm not a child abuser or anything, but I always end up getting, there's always something. Do I think all careers need to take psychology and different ways to handle learning disabilities? It would be helpful, you know. It would be helpful. It'll also be helpful if people didn't see those who are not like them as a threat, right? So when we look at like the teachers who are quick to suspend kids who have a little bit of something going on with them, they don't care to know that what's going on at home, because if you knew some of these kids' stories, you would have compassion on them. Some of these kids, their parents are on meth. Some of these kids, they don't sleep in the bed at night. Some of these kids, they sleep on the couch every night, or they sleep on the floor every night. They don't have privacy. When they're going through their growing pains, they don't have a place to just be themselves. They're always exposed. They got people running in and out of their houses because their parents sell drugs. You know what I'm saying? And their home life is wild. So when they come to school, of course they got a problem. I've been up all night. I've been up all night. I haven't eaten. I haven't bathed in 3 days because we don't have running water. My clothes are wrinkled because we don't have electricity in my house, so I couldn't iron my clothes. My clothes stink because I haven't been able to wash them. I gotta watch my little brothers and sisters while my mom goes to work at night. When I go home, I'm a parent. I don't get sleep. I don't get rest. But some teachers, they don't, especially when it comes to black children, they don't take the time to learn these stories or learn these situations. But yet and still, I see, and I've seen it firsthand, white students, they get chance after chance after chance. There's so much understanding, so much benefit of the doubt. Um, and it's not every case, and I don't think that every black kid is a demon, and every white child is a demon. I don't think any. I just think kids deal with life with the best tools that they are given. Right? Like my sons, my oldest boys used to do wild stuff in school. We're wild boys. And we go to church and we believe God. My sons got caught up in nonsense all the time. So, like, but they still had a foundation. So kids are going to be kids. And you either love kids or you don't. And if you don't love kids, then you don't need to be teaching. And, I don't know where I'm teaching next year. I would love to have some job security, but right now that is not a thing. But I am just believing God to work it out on our behalf. He is going to, God, his name is Jehovah Jireh, my provider. And what these last 2 years have shown me is that God is a provider, and he always comes through. He always comes through. Do I deserve it? Nope. Because I'm not perfect. Me, I am not holy. I'm only saved by grace through faith in Christ. You know? So we'll see what happens. I tried to call my old job back, but even those folks gave me the runaround. I put in some applications for other schools, They haven't reached out yet, so we'll see what happens. I I don't know if any of them are watching this video. I don't know who's watching what, but it just is what it is, man. It just is what it is. I'm here. I told the Lord that I want the gift of faith, and the only way you get the gift of faith is to go through some situations to where you're not going to be able to figure it out, to where you can only trust God, and that's just where I am. Um, I thank God for I thank God for YouTube. I thank God for all of our new subscribers and our new family members. Um, our channel was dormant for a long time. Not a lot of motion, not a lot of movement, but this home buying series has been a blessing to people everywhere. It's been it's given them a way to connect with us and to see our process, and giving them insight on who we are and how we parent, and it's given us the opportunity to meet new people. And I'm just grateful, man. I am so grateful. So I would love. That's always been my dream. That I used to think that when school let out, I'm gonna go crazy with the content, just like really boost up the numbers to the point to where I don't have to go back to school. And that hasn't been the case. So we're gonna try again this year. Regardless of how the money goes, we are going to trust God. Me and Key, while we were on our date tonight, we were thinking, oh, it's almost time for me to go to bed, y'all. Um, Thinking about things that we need, and we have a laundry list of things that we still need to make this family work. And we don't have the money right now to do those things. We need a bigger van. We need another car. We need a lawnmower, a weed whacker. We need to build a deck so that we can increase our outside living space. We need, we got a whole mound of dirt out there that is attracting all sorts of wildlife that is scaring the girls. We need to get that stuff out of the way, and just a bunch of stuff. So we definitely, man, when y'all see our stuff, just watch it. Watch the ads through it. Let them play. While the ads are playing, go grab a drink or something. And when we're on live, if you can give the super chat, definitely do it, because YouTube has got to work, man. Because there are so many things that I feel like I'm being held back from because I have to work a 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, but there's just so much that comes along with that. We deserve it. I don't know if we deserve it. It would be nice if we have it, but like, we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So, I know that I'm a sinner. I know that I am not perfect, and it is by God's grace that I am still here. So I don't deserve anything compared to in the eyes of a holy God. But I'm praying that it is God's will for us that we are able to get these things. This has been one of the highest lives for sure. 25 likes on the live. Thank y'all so much. I have yapped until my mouth is dry from talking so much. But yo, thank y'all so much for rocking with me tonight. I don't know what led me here or why I wanted to share all this with y'all. Somebody will probably use this in a court or try to use it against me, whatever the case is. I don't know. But God is good. And 26 likes. There we go. I think our highest liked live was like 50 likes one time. It was a pizza night. But if you're not subscribed to our channel, please, you'd be doing us a great favor. Watch our stuff. Yeah, definitely had to vent, man. I've been holding this in for a long time. But now it's on the internet. And who knows what's going to transpire from it, but I just know, we need God's favor on our lives in order to make this thing work. We just got this new house, and we gotta take care of it. And I would love for YouTube to be that way. The last couple weeks have been amazing. We have grown like 600 subscribers over the last week, and that is amazing for our channel. We're getting closer and closer to 10,000, and I believe that that's going to unlock a door for us. So the quicker y'all help us to get to 10,000, the better off we'll be. Watch our videos, and because right now it's all ad revenue, right, that we're getting at a small CPM. But yeah, man, it's the best way y'all can support us, showing up and engaging our content. We need more people who is passionate about the kids, man. I would love that. I would love that. In a perfect world, we'd have that. But all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So even though these children are growing up in schools where, teachers don't care about them like how I do, and I have never been perfect, but, I like to say that I've loved all my students, care for them deeply, even the ones who pissed me off and disrespected me. I know that they're kids, and I still want them to succeed. You gotta DM her, because I don't know if she knows your handle. Or if you send me a DM, you just look me up, Sean Purefoy on Instagram, Sean Purefoy on Facebook. Yeah, just look me up, and then we can talk. And I usually do the public relations and background stuff, or just send us an email, and we'll start the correspondence then. But it is almost 1:00 in the morning over here, and I want to get some stuff done on the land tomorrow. So I just want to thank y'all so much, man, for rocking with us. We almost got to 30 likes on the live. Maybe next time. We'll see if we go live tomorrow. But y'all keep praying for us. Y'all keep watching our stuff. Oh, I'm done for the school year. And I usually pray every morning. Seek the Lord every morning. It's the first thing I do. Give him praise, give him thanks, and just begin to speak over my day. Bring back karaoke. We might just do that. But I'm about to get up out of here, man. Thank y'all for letting me vent. Thank y'all for the encouragement and the understanding. Oh, 29. We almost at 30 likes. And yeah, if y'all know somebody that's hiring, tell them I need a job. Oh, man. Y'all have a good night, and I will see y'all in the next one. Live life led by God. Love the journey. Peace out. Y'all have a good night.